Hi Illuminates, so we're back. It has been a little bit of a while, I apologise for that, but we are back today for part 10C and part D. We're putting them together, so it'll be a little bit longer, a little bit more in depth, hopefully, on winter warfare. So if you remember, 10A was really all about ground snow, if I remember rightly, and B must have been about deep snow. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into the mechanics of skiing and Akios. So Akios are actually quite simple, but we'll be looking at the rules for those two aspects. We are going to play a little mini scenario through. I may or may not finish it, depends on whether it looks interesting or not, because it's not a design scenario, it's literally thrown a few counters down so we can really just look at the way that counters move differently in a deep snow scenario, depending on their kind of like their sort of status in terms of skis, etc. And that basically is what we're going to do. So I hope you get something out of it. Let's start off talking about skis. So let's just talk briefly about what skis do and the rules associated with them. I'm going to pop the skis just here for a moment. And you can see we have a ski counter here. These are under the German, if you want to find them on Vassal, they're in the German counters, and it's under the white the white counters section. You'll find the skis, and you can see they've got two sides. This is the skis on side, and this is the skis off side here. I'm going to get myself a squad, because of course these things have got to be possessed by somebody, and at the moment this guy has the skis off, and I don't know if you can see that or not. It might be worth me kind of like zooming in. It's kind of hopefully that you can read that. When the skis are off, they are one portage point. He's obviously got them on his back like a light machine gun or something like that, and he's carrying it around. That squad's carrying it around. They are 1 pp. Underneath that it says 2 mf, and that means it's 2 movement factors. Actually, it's 2 mf on. That's because it costs 2 movement factors to put the skis on, to turn them from off mode to on mode. Obviously, when they're off, the guys just move normally, but with 1 additional portage point that they're carrying around. The exception to 2 movement factors is also on the back here, FI, that's finish 1. It only costs finish units 1 movement factor to put their skis on. Let's imagine this chap here has got his skis on. Obviously, an important thing to say is obviously you only have skis by SSR. If you do have skis, you also have winter camouflage automatically, and obviously you can only use the benefits of skis in snow conditions, so basically ground snow and deep snow. The scenario we're going to look at today is going to be deep snow. So this is the on side. So you can see it's 0 movement factors off. That means it doesn't cost you any movement factors to take the skis on. You can only toggle between on and on during the movement phase or the route phase, so you can use the skis for routing away. There are no penalties to firing, or there is, well, I'll talk about machine guns in a moment. There are no penalties as such to firing, but in close combat there's quite significant penalties. So if you are wearing skis in close combat, and you can see this is here at the bottom, not if you're carrying them, but if you're wearing them, it's +2 to your close combat roll, and it is -2 to your opponent's close combat roll. So it's like being double CX. It's quite a significant penalty. I'm kind of assuming you can't take them off if you're in melee. Well, you wouldn't be able to, because it's a movement action, isn't it? So you're stuck in close combat with your skis on. So that's quite a big penalty. Definitely want to be thinking about taking those off. An alternative, if you're playing against somebody with skis, again, an opportunity to get into close combat with them when they're wearing the skis. Obviously, that's going to be worthwhile. One other combat thing about skis is that you can't fire ordnance or any support weapon, even a light machine gun, while wearing the skis or drive a vehicle. I suppose that would be pretty obvious. You need to change out into ski mode off before you fire a light machine gun. Having said that, they're quite capable of carrying light support weapons. It doesn't impact their portage points at all. The only issue really is that when they take their skis off, You know, whereas they may have not been overly laden, they suddenly might be overladen because you've got that additional +1. A point about the route phase actually is that units with skis that are broken and need to route in the route phase can put their skis on or take their skis off if they pay the appropriate movement factor costs. But if they want to low crawl, they have to take the skis off first. You can't low crawl, so that's going to, yes, I suppose it's 0 movement factors, isn't it, to take the skis off and then to conduct a low crawl. I suppose it makes sense if you're on your hands and knees to have your skis sticking up at the back. Seems a little bit silly. So let's just see how they move. Now, in order to see how they move, I'm going to move this chap to the side for a moment. Okay, I'm going to grab hold of this British half squad by way of demonstrating other conditions. Okay, right, we're going to put our British half squad here in M5. Now we're going to imagine for a moment that this is a normal Eastern or Western theatre of operations non-winter board. We're all used to moving this unit here. He's going to cost him 1 to move to M4. It's going to cost him 2 to move. Tell you what I'm even going to do. Look at this. This is a new feature, I think. 1 to move to M4. It's going to cost 2 to move to M3 because he's moving to a higher elevation. So that's 3 in total. It's going to cost him 2 to move into M2 because in normal non-winter conditions it doesn't cost anything else, anything different to go downhill. And there he's completed his movement, and that's as far as he can get. Right, so we're now imagining this unit without skis moving in non-snow conditions. It's going to be 1.5 to there, paying the additional half because we are in deep snow. Now moving to M3 is going to cost 2 normally, an additional 1 because you're going uphill in snow, an additional half for crossing the hex spine in deep snow conditions. So that costs 3.5. We've already spent 1.5, so that's 5. So in actual fact, this unit would have to CX, it would have to double time in order to get there. And even if he had double timed at the beginning of his movement phase, he wouldn't be able to go any further because to move into any hex from here would be at least 1.5 because you have to pay that extra 1.5 for each hex spine crossed. Right, let's leave the CX there so we remember where that chap got to. And what we're going to do now is we're going to have a look at how far can he get with skis. Okay, so I'll explain the rules as I go along. The first thing to remember about skiing is that you ignore all winter conditions or sort of movement penalties. So at the minimum, this German squad is going to be able to get as far as M2, but you'll see why in a moment. It's actually able to go a little bit further than that. So first off, that's only costing 1. This will cost 2, so we're now at 3 movement factors. Going down to here, it costs us another movement factor normally, so that's 4, but because we are going down from a higher elevation to a lower elevation, we add 2 movement factors. So although we would have exhausted our movement there, in fact we have now got 2 movement factors. We can carry on. We move to here. We've got 2 left. We've got, I beg your pardon, we've got 1 left. But when we go to here, we've got 2 left because we're going to lose 1 by going downhill, and we're going to, but we're going to gain 2 as a bonus for going downhill on skis. So we're 2 there. We've got 3 movement factors now. 2 movement factors, 3 movement factors, 4, and that's as far as we can get without double timing. Interestingly, we can go into crag with skis. We pay the normal cost. We can go into woods, though we pay the normal cost. We can't go into buildings. We can't go into rubble. We can't go into entrenchments. Although we can go into all of those things if we take the skis off. Can't go over cliffs, we can't climb, things like that. But you can see just what a huge difference those skis make. And this is a unit that did not CX. The other unit moving without skis that use CX only got really a couple of hexes, two or three hexes. So that's that key thing, that going down, so you have normal movement going uphill, and then downhill you're getting although you still have to pay the cost to move into the hex, you get the bonus 2 movement factors in addition. Now I believe that this can be used to increase the movement cost of units that normally you wouldn't be able to increase the movement cost of. For example, a wounded single man counter can increase the number of movement factors they have by skiing downhill. Let's say we've done that. I think we've done it. Oh, no, important. You get to still advance when you are wearing skis. So that's an important point. Okay, we can still get to advance. Okay, so I want to demonstrate the use of the Akio. Okay, so we're going to pop our little man here in the same position he was in just a moment ago. So here we go. Let's zoom in a little bit. Okay, let's get ourselves a heavy support weapon. Let's get a medium machine gun. That's going to be relevant in the scenario in a minute. Okay, so the Akio. Okay. So the first thing to notice when you look at the Akio is it has 2 sides. If I flip it over, so obviously if you were playing in real boards, real counters, you would just simply flip it over. The Akio is 3 portage points. That means that this half squad can carry the Akio, but it's going to cost them 3 portage points. Obviously they've only got 3 portage points, so it's going to be quite difficult. It's not going to slow them down as they start to double time. They can only just carry an Akio without penalty, and even then they do have a penalty if they are CX. But if we flip it over, we can see it says IPC plus 2 portage points. And what that means is the portage points available to that half squad, which is normally 3, increases by 2 when they're using an Akio rather than actually portaging it itself. So essentially this is a sled. In English we call it something like a sled, wouldn't we? And they're pulling it along, and they are able to put something heavy on it, for example a medium machine gun, and it's going to be easy for them to carry it. A couple of perhaps obvious provisos: it has to be in conditions where skiers would normally be allowed to go, basically ground snow and deep snow. You can't use this to drag it over, I don't know, non-snowy conditions. That would be silly. Let's just try and see how this half squad gets on carrying this medium machine gun without an Akio. Imagine this is snowy conditions here. So he has 3 portage points. This is 4. So it's 1 more than he can normally carry. So his movement factors go down to 3. This unit in snowy conditions can go 1.5, 3. That's as far as he can go. He wouldn't be able to get up this hill. It'd be too costly for him. Even if he was here, it's going to cost 1, 2, 3.5 for him to move. He'd have to CX just to get up there. And then, of course, he would lose 1 of his portage points. So he would manage to get up there, but only just. So what can we do to help him with this Akio? Okay, let's stick that there. Let's get rid of the this thing. Okay, so now he's got 5 portage points. He's carrying something that costs 4, so he is well within his ability to portage it. Okay, let's just look at him going along somewhere relatively straightforward. Okay, so can we see there? Yeah, okay. Right, so he's just moving along the ridge of this hill here. He's able to move 1, 2, 3, and he's still got another movement point because this is snowy conditions. He can't go any further, but he can do that. Okay, he can also double time and be able to get quite a long way. So, for example, he now has 6 movement factors. Even though his portage capacity has gone down by 1, it's still 4. It's still enough to carry that medium machine gun. So he doesn't get the penalty from going CX that you normally would carrying a heavier weapon like that. So this is a 1.5, 2, 3, 4, 5 to there. He can't get any further, but you can see that he's in a much, much better position using the Akio than not using the Akio. Akios cannot enter crags. They cannot go over hedges or walls. Otherwise, they are similar to skis in terms of where they can go. And incidentally, both can bypass buildings, for example. Okay, let me have a quick look, check you can see this. Okay, let's zoom out just a little bit so you can see this scenario. Now, remember, this is not a carefully thought out scenario. This is simply putting out some boards somewhat randomly, taking out some counters somewhat randomly. I decided to call it the Lost Platoon. It is inspired by something that I read, but it isn't carefully historically researched at all. Essentially, you've got a small force based around a platoon of British first-line infantry. Bit more than a platoon there because they've got some stragglers, they've got some green troops, and they have got some second-line troops, I think. So it's inspired by a story of British troops trying to retreat, caught in the chaos of retreat, Germans close behind the retreat, getting kind of cut off from the main road that was their planned route of escape, end up having to go cross-country, being pursued cross-country without proper equipment. And in this scenario, they start here on board 82 within 1 hex radius of S6, this little group down here. They've also got a medium machine gun and a light machine gun, and of course they've got an Akio. And they've got to get to any level 2 hill hex on board 81 with 6 points, 6 CVP points. So that's the aim of these guys. They've got a couple of leaders which will help them with the movement, but it's deep snow, so the movement is going to be painfully slow and difficult. The British move first. They start obviously there. On German turn 1, Germans moving second. This reasonably big pursuit force comes on between L10 and V10, anywhere along there that they want to. And they are in pursuit of the British force. Then there's this force of ski troops, mountain troops and ski troops that have to enter on this hex here, which I think is a 7. So we get to see them in action as ski troops. Obviously, these troops are trying to get in front of the British and create some sort of a block, or possibly just to slow the British down a little bit so that this pursuing force, you can see it's a bit of a ragtag. They've sent off troops, they've got some first line troops, they sent off the Germans, but they've also got a bunch of second line troops. They've sent the cooks and the drivers and stuff off to make up the numbers in pursuit. They're smelling blood. I think they smell blood with the British in this force. So we're going to set the British up first. Okay, we're going to set this group up here as far forward as possible, because there are 8 points here. If we can get these to a level 2 hill on the topmost board 81, then the British would win, and the British win at any time that as soon as they do that. It's not an end of the game or anything like that. If they get there, they win. This medium machine gun on the Akio is going to go off with a half squad, and we're going to put it somewhere like this. And the idea is that that's going to create some sort of a rear guard. The rest of the British troops are going to go with a 7-0, and now they can do rear guard duty. Later on, they can turn into half squads and run across and try and draw fire from the ski troops, perhaps. As long as we keep that green squad with a leader, it's got the same movement capabilities as all the other squads. As soon as we separate him from the leader, he becomes sort of like a conscript in terms of his movement capability. So hopefully we'll be able to make some progress. I'm going to leave them unconcealed so people can see what I'm doing. Obviously, in a normal scenario, these troops would be concealed. I'm going to do the same with the Germans. I'm just not going to conceal them. I'm just going to this is only for the sake of demonstrating the rules of ski troops. Okay. The other thing that I'm going to do at some point, If we don't roll a double six for the wind, I am going to cheat and pretend that there is a double six, because I also want to go through the process of putting out snow drift counters. What's the wind? Damn. Okay, all right. So first, these guys here. This medium machine gun, really we want to get it up into some sort of a position like there, where they're going to be able to fire on the Germans as they're coming up the hill. So he's going to move to T4, which would normally cost 2. It's not a double crest, is it? No. Normally costs 2. It's cost additional 1.5 because of the conditions, so it's going to cost 3.5 for them to get to there. But they're not CX, so they can still advance. In fact, they'll be able to advance up to there for another 3.5, and they are going to be in a position. You've got this spur here in T3. Not sure what they can see, but they're obviously not going to be able to see over this, past this stuff. But that's a little bit awkward for the Germans, isn't it? And they're going to be moving very, very slowly anyway. Okay, this unit here. Now we're looking for kind of like a route of least resistance. So we're going to try to avoid this double crest here. Instead, we're going to perhaps go up that kind of a way. Going to double time. So we've got 8 movement factors: 1.5, 3, 4.5, 5, 6, 7, 8 gets us to there. So that little group was able to make quite a bit of progress. Right, this group can't. Okay, so it's not going to be able to get up one of these double crests. So what makes sense here is not to double time this group, to go 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, because they can advance up through this double crest in a moment. It would actually cost them 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5. So it will CX them, but they will, because it's above 4. But they will be able to get up there. I'll talk about how to work out the cost of moving up the double crest line with the infantry in just in a moment when I do that advance. Okay, that's the end of the British movement phase. There's obviously no defensive fire, no advancing fire, there's no routes, so we're going to go straight to advances. We've already discussed this guy is able to drag the machine gun up to T3, which is just where he wants him. These guys, okay, so normally it would cost 2 to move into uphill 1 level into Q2. So we'll start with that. That's the 2 movement points that would normally be. There is, however, an additional 2 for each intermediary level. And here there's 1 intermediary level between the starting level and the finishing level. We have to add 2 movement factors cost for that. So it's now costing us 4 movement factors to move up there. Costs an additional 1 because of the snow, so it's 5, an additional 1 because it's deep snow, 5.5, which will CX them as they move up there. But the good thing about being where they are is they are going to be able to move up to Q1 and avoid these Germans from firing at them, that which I think is really the point of this. Okay, so these guys. So moving to P1 would be a double crest line move, and they can't do that because they are already CX. However, they can move to O3 because that's only going to cost 3.5 movement points. It's also a nice position to have the British in a way, because of course they get to fire down this gap between the hills, which actually looks like a reasonable route of relatively minor resistance to the chasing Germans. Of course, I'm forgetting that there's this dried up stream en route. So that's the British advances. That's the end of British turn 1. So we're going to flip. German turn 1. No change to the weather. Germans got a pretty clear idea what they want to be doing here. They want to be moving as quickly as possible. Okay, so the German plan is to get themselves up here so they can advance onto this ridge. It'll CX the ones from U10. Probably the ones in T9 will have to be CX, I'm not sure. But when they're on this ridge, they're going to be able to put some fire onto that medium machine gun. So that's the basic plan. So this is how we're going to set up. So these guys are going to double time, and they're moving in, we think, really, really safe, because I don't think these guys can see them, and I don't think that these guys can see them either. So this move is going to cost 2, 3.5, 6 to there, and they're going to stop there. Okay, so this is going to be 1.5, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they're going to stop there. These guys are going to go assault move to there. These guys are going to double time. They're going to go 1.5, 2, 3, 4, 5 to there, and they are CX. Okay. Right, we've got our group over here. So we've got 4 movement factors. We're moving with a leader. We're going to move as a stack. So we've got 6 movement factors. We're going to double time. So we have 8. The skis, we're wearing them. Yep, we're wearing them. Just had to check that. So there's no cost for carrying them. Let's see how far they can go. And remember, they don't have a huge benefit here because we're going uphill. But let's see where they can get to. So that would be 1 to move to there. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They're nicely hidden from the from British line of sight. There is a light machine gun somewhere, nicely hidden by all of these higher level hills. And that's the end of the German movement phase. The British take no defensive fire shots, there's no advancing fire shots, there's no routes, and now we move to the advances. So this group here wants to move up into T8, which they can do because that's only going to cost 3.5 movement points. However, this one is more expensive. So that will actually CX them. It's more expensive because it's a double crest line. So they're CX. These guys will assault move to here, and these guys will assault move to there. 3.5 points, that's fine. And these guys can assault move as well. Now it sort of makes sense to go up with skiers in the advanced phase if you can, and it's not going to be too costly. 3, 4. It would actually, we actually can't go up into that crag because it would cost 4. The 2 for crag doubled, plus 1.5 for the snowy conditions. We can't actually get into B1, but we could get into this hex. And actually, I think that that's a reasonably safe hex for them because you've got these yet higher hills sheltering us from the British. Having said that, there is a risk that the British get to, I don't know, somewhere like here, and they might just get a shot, depending on range and things like that, at these skiers. Anyway, that's the end of the German movement phase. I'm going to flip it again. And we're going to pretend that the last turn we had a double 6. We had gusts as the for the wind dice roll. If in any player turn gusts are in operation, in effect, or heavy wind, then before your next rally phase, you have to place snowdrift counters in every board. So if you dig out your snowdrift counters, there should be one for each of the letters that define the kind of the rows. And the idea is that you would, I don't have those counters handy, we can't generate them on Vassal, but so what I've done is I'm going to do a random number generator between 1 and 33 for each board. So board 82, generate a number, 28, so that's like 5 back, isn't it? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so it goes in C5. You always put it in number 5. Number 5 of the hex, of the hex row that has been selected randomly by you picking out the counter. Let's do it again. 23, so it's going to be 2 over, isn't it? So let's just clone that and put it in AA4, AA5. Okay, that's right. Okay, and then we'll clone that. Roll again, 22. So that would be in the BB over here, BB5s. We just put them in the middle. Now, we roll a normal sniper type random selection dice roll, bottom board 4, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that goes off the board. It actually doesn't go into play if it goes off the board. If it goes onto another board, then you leave it where it lands. Right, next one. 5, 3. So this one is going to move down here. 1, 2, 3. That's its final position. And then we've got, and actually that's almost quite useful for potentially blocking lines of sight, but for the skiers. But actually, I think they'll be all right because they'll go down into this sort of valley, won't they? Right, last one. 3, 6. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Now these drifts face the direction of the wind. So the wind. So a number 1 straight up. I've got to determine the wind. So straight up is that the wind is going in that direction straight up. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the wind is going in this direction, the kind of southeasterly direction. So we turn this. Yep, that one's already turned, and the other one went off the board, didn't it? So we've got. I'm not even sure if you can see that. Let me have a look. So we've got one there. We've got one there. In fact, just zoom in so you have a closer look at it. It covers this hex side here, and it covers this hex side here. So what is the effect of snow drifts? Well, first off, they are like stone walls for line of sight purposes, so you potentially have some lines of sight blocked. Entering or crossing a snowdrift hex side costs all of an infantry's movement factors and all of a vehicle's movement points. With a vehicle, it is also a bog check, and I think it's +2. Yeah, it's +2 to the bog roll in addition to any other modifiers that there might be. Even though you're crossing, so as you cross into the drift, crossing the drift hex side into the drift hex, you're always assumed to bog in the hex, not outside it or not on the hex side or anything like that. So Germans have no additional rally actions. Let's zoom back out a little bit. It's actually the British turn, isn't it? Sorry, the British have no rally actions. Okay, so the British are desperately looking for a way of skulking this Akio, but they can't take it. They can't take it into this crag. They could go down, but unfortunately it would put them on the same level as these Germans and move them closer, which would actually make them a little bit more dangerous, because this unit here, there's a 447 in there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, wouldn't make any difference. They can't move into the crag using the Akio. They could prep fire, but we want to move things. Okay, so why not prep fire? Right, I'll tell you why they shouldn't prep fire. I suppose from a tactical point of view, you don't really want to be having the Germans break you in your turn. You'd rather be broken by the Germans being forced to prep fire in their turn. So British are going to try and skulk here. The other thing is I'm not 100% how safe we are. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I think this group of British are relatively safe from these guys, as long as they're a little bit careful about where they go. Okay, so we go to the movement phase. Okay, so this guy is going to assault move. Now this unit is actually higher. No, I think they got a prep fire. So this unit's going to prep fire, and we'll fire at the best unit there. So it's going to be a 4 flat. No effect, doesn't cover, doesn't do any good either. Okay, we go straight to the movement phase. Okay, so all of these guys are CX, so let's take the CX off. We want to move up into Q1 really. That's going to cost 1, 2, 3.5, 4, 5 to there. This group, again, we want to take the CX off. Going to move into the crag, which normally costs 2, so it's 4 to move up there in normal circumstances. So it's going to be 5.5 for them to move to there. So that is actually as far as those British can move. German defensive fire. Okay, so they're obviously going to take a shot from here. 4, 8, 12. Right, they are higher, so they do actually get height advantage. 9, 10 is a pin toss check, which the British unit fails, and so they are pinned. The other group will take a shot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it is actually 8, and I've only got 10. 10, but this time it's +2 because this group is CX. 6, 7, 8 on an 8 is a normal morale check, and the British unit ELRs and breaks. But hopefully has achieved what we wanted from him, which was to demonstrate the use of Akios. Interestingly, we're also going to see how it is that a unit that has to rout, and actually I suppose he doesn't have to rout, but a unit that routes has to drop the Akio first, and obviously this medium machine gun would be dropped at the same point because it's already 4 pp, isn't it? Okay, so that's advancing fire from the British. The British don't have any advancing fire, but they do have some advances. So we're going to move. I'm going to move all the way into here, 3.5, and into here. Now there is just a possibility that drift, remarkably, might be in the way, but we've got the light machine gun up here, 16 hex range. So as a long range shot, I mean, I know this is cheating, but they will be able to see that hex, not that hex, not that hex. They can see that one. So I'm gonna go through it. Now it does go through the drift hedge, but it doesn't go through it on that side. In any case, this unit has specifically got itself higher. It's a full level higher than the drift, so it can see over it anyway. Okay. Sorry, we didn't do any routing, did we? So they're going to stay where they are because they don't want to drop the Akio. Flip, German turn 2. Let's get rid of some counters. Right, wind, no change. The British cannot attempt to rally, but they do lose their DM. And there's no prep fire, so it's the German movement phase. So this will start over here. It's going to go 1.5, 3. I don't really understand this gully. I'm going to assume it's in P5. But that's as far as he can go. Okay. These guys can double time. So we can go 1, 2 for the crag, an additional 1 because of the snow. So just 3 to there, 3.5 to there, and 5 to there, 6.5 to there. These guys comes off. They're going to do their best to follow. 1.5, 2, 3, 4, 5 to there. Can't get any further. And these guys just look silly. Okay, so 1.5, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, they can't get there. So let's not CX, just get them as far as that. Oh, actually, they can get to here, can't they? If they CX. But they won't be able to advance forwards. Okay. Right, let's see what happens to the skiers. Now, we are having to take the CX off. They can't CX again. So gut feeling is these guys won't be able to get very far. But let's have a look. So 1 movement factor to there. Now, that's the point where we think that they can be seen from this light machine gun. Okay, right, it's obviously long range. So it's only a 1 firepower attack. The guys are wearing winter camouflage. Non-assault movement in the open is -2, but winter camouflage at that range is +1. So this is a 1 -1 overall. 6, 7 doesn't do them any damage. So they've spent 1 movement point to there, 2 to there, 3 to there. Now we're going downhill. It should be that that's cost us 4 to there. But instead we're now on 5. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to move them back. And I'll put the movement trail on. Okay. So they've got 6 movement factors. One possibility is perhaps count down. 5 to there, where they were fired on. 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4. They've still got 4 movement factors at this point. 4, 3, 2, 1. Advance. That's the end of their movement factors. Get to there. They get all of that way in that turn, and that was with without being CX, just because they had 1, 2, 3, 4 elevations going down. Okay, right. So that's the end of the German movement phase. There are no defensive fire actions from the British, but there might be a couple of advancing fire actions. These guys will fire 6 up 2 into here. No effect. I think they can see them. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to be 6 up 1. 4, 5 on a 6. 1 morale check. The British pass it, but of course they are again DM. Routes. Okay, so this time it's getting a bit hairy. So the British are going to route. They're going to drop the support weapon and the Akio, and they're going to route backwards. 1, 2, 2.5 to there, and that's as far as they can get. Interestingly, there wasn't any route terrain that they could get to, so they can go in any direction they wanted to. German advances. Okay, they're going to go down into here. It's going to cost 1, 2 to go into the hole, 3 for the change in elevation, 3.5, so it doesn't CX them. They can't go up there, but they can go to here. These guys down to there. These guys have to stay where they are. Okay, and that's the end of German turn 2. Flip. Allied turn 3. Now it's actually already kind of heading in toward the end game, because this is where the British need to get, really. If they can get 6 move factors to there, they can win this game. The thing is, they're not going to get very far this turn, and the German skiers are getting into position to try to interdict them, and the guys at the back with a medium machine gun are already broken, that we're going to try and slow the Germans down perhaps a little bit more. Let's roll for the British wind turn. There's no change there. The British get to do a self-rally here. They don't rally. We're going to take the CX off, force the Germans to do something. We haven't put any snipers out because it wasn't really relevant to teaching this aspect of the rules. No prep fire from the British, so now we're going to move. Now the British have to be a little bit careful, because has this German group down there already got a line of sight up onto the hills somewhere, perhaps? What we do know is that they can't fire the light machine gun, so it would only be their inherent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that means that something like sort of U4, T4 is actually the limit of the German capability to fire. If they took their skis off, they'd be able to fire the light machine gun further. So that's going to give the British a little bit of confidence, and very, very cheekily they're going to start moving. Normally 1 to go downhill, an additional 1 for snow, so that's and a half for the deep snow, so that's 1, 2.5 to there. They can't get into this crag, partly because it's a double crest line, so they're going to have to pay an additional 1 for that intermediary level. When you're going downhill, you pay +1 for each intermediary level instead of +2 that you pay on the way up. So moving into that crag would normally be 2 movement factors to move in there, an additional 1 because of the 1 intermediary level between the one you start at and that you finish at, so that's 3, another 1 because of the snow, that's 4, and another half, so 4.5 in total. And we've already spent 1, 2.5 getting to there, so we wouldn't be able to get to there. So it's 5 to there, and that's as far as that group can go. But actually, that might not be a bad place for the British to be, because they can get down onto this level here in the advanced phase, and they're definitely out of sight of the Germans, because the Germans are 1 level below, and there's the plateau effect of all of this stuff. So these guys are going to do the same thing. It might have been that they could set. Let's have a look, see if they could see the British during any of their moves. They can see these guys where they are currently, but not where they'd be planning to go. But they would if the British went in that direction, they would be able to see. But it makes no difference. I mean, they could have taken their skis off but they didn't. So that light machine gun is useless, okay, at the moment. So the British are going to go down to here. It's a double crest line, so it's normally one to move into there, an additional one for the additional crest line, an additional one for the snow, and the half, so it's 3.5 into there. And that probably is as far as they can get, at least in terms of where they want to go. They really want to be one level lower, but they can't get into there. Okay, that's that. British movement phase over. No defensive fire. Well, yeah, I don't think the Germans can actually see this guy. So no defensive fire from the Germans, no advancing fire from the British, and no routes, just advances. So they're going down to here, where I think they are actually quite safe, and they've got something, depending on what the Germans do, they've currently got a route through this valley to kind of advance up to there and go into there. They're going to go, ooh, I don't think they're allowed to go into the crag. 1, 2, 3, 4.5. No, they're not. They have to move down to here because they're already CX. They can't spend more than 4 movement factors to move into S7. So I think one of the things I find really interesting about the about the snow rules is the way you really have to find routes, whether you're on foot or on skis, finding kind of like routes of least resistance through the terrain, and thinking about boards like this, quite complex lines of sight. So that's the end of Allied turn 3. Is now Axis turn 3. Wind. Rally actions, there are none. Movement, no prep fire. We're going to go to movement. So these guys, that's going to cost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. He can't do that. Oh, he can do a minimum move, can't he? Okay. There's CX and pinned. This guy can go 1, 2, 3.5 to there. These guys, the CX comes off them, and they're going to go 1.5, 3, 4.5, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they can't get up there, so they're going to have to stop there. And these guys are going to go, well, they can double time, can't they? Well, they're not going to go 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6. Okay. No defensive fire from the British. Oh, I haven't done the skis, sorry. Okay, ski troops. Okay, so they are going to, they're on to this, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they're going to stop there. No defensive fire from the British, no advancing fire from the Germans. Sorry, there is advancing fire from the Germans, so they're going to fire up here. Roll some dice. That's not going to have any effect, but they are going to be DM. So, okay, so that's defensive fire over, advancing fire over, routes. So they're not routing. The Germans can advance. So none of these guys are CX. So this is the opportunity really for going up double hex spines. They can't, but they can. It's going to CX everybody. Is he CX 1, 2, 3.5? No, actually, he doesn't CX him. Okay, where are these guys going? Right, I guess we really want these Germans like somewhere like T1, don't we? So let's just keep on moving. Okay. So that's the advanced phase complete for the Germans. It's now Allied turn 4. Wind. No change. Rallies. Guys don't come back. Get rid of the move counters. Okay, right, so go straight into movement. Okay, these guys. This is actually a double. Actually, because the Germans here are behind that wood, it might be worth missing this crag by going sort of this way. 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5. And we can get as far as that if you CX down into here. And then these ones. Okay, let's have them go in different directions. Let's see how that works out. So these guys can double time. 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5. That's it. That's where they're going. Okay, these guys, the CX comes off. 2.5, 4, 5.5. Now I think they're secure. I mean, it's a Yeah, I think they're secure because this hex is at the same level as them, but there's lots of things in between. I mean, there's this in between, isn't there? So they're absolutely fine. Okay, so that's the British movement phase. Defensive fire from the Germans. I guess they're going to want to take a shot at that guy there, aren't they? This is going to be a 12 up 2. No effect. I've got to say they're doing quite well at not actually dying, or even being forced to move. No advancing fire, so it advances. So the British move up to here with the intention of going that way, and these ones will move. I think this makes sense. Going that way, I think, makes sense because it's forcing the Germans to split, because this group can win the game. No, it can't. There's only 5 points in there, and they need 6. Probably what would have made sense is to swap the leaders over, actually, because if I had a -1 leader in this group, it would be worth 6, and with a 7-0 in that group, it would be worth 7. That would have been a better tactics. So I'm not going to play the scenario out to completion because I've no idea if it's balanced or anything, and there's not much action going on, is it really? It's just people chasing each other around these hills. But I hope people agree with me that there's some really kind of interesting dynamics when it comes to moving in the winter, and there aren't enough scenarios that take advantage of that. And I hope that people going to go away and have a little go at winter scenarios, designing them, playing them. Thank you very much. So I'll be back at some point in the future. Please put some comments in, tell me what I should be doing. I'm very much making sure that I go back to this kind of tabletop talk where we actually are sort of playing a game. The last couple I did I was just going through the rules. That seemed pretty dry to me. I was a bit disappointed really with those. So we're back to these kinds, and hopefully they're better. If you've got something you'd like me to do, put comments, and I will have a look at them, and certainly may well put that on the list for future tabletop talks. For now, bye bye.